That was our accompanist, Whittaker Locke, playing The Wind of Change Forever Blown, hymn 183 in our hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. Welcome to the live Zoom version of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, an inclusive religious community of people supporting each other in the search for truth and meaning. I'm Rick Spradlin, your service leader for today. And now David will give us a little quick refresher tips on using Zoom.
All right. Today's service, like all of them, will be recorded on YouTube. So if you don't want your face showing up on YouTube, you can hit the stop video button now, and we'll just see your little name placeholder. And we always encourage you to subscribe to our UUFC channel on YouTube. We will, after the closing hymn, we will have a Q&A and discussion period and socializing period for the for whatever you want to talk about, as well as questions and comments about Rick's service. So save your comments then. At that point, you can either join us with your microphone or use the chat button. Back to you, Rick.
Okay, and now time for our announcements. And Brenda sent these out to us if you didn't see them. Brenda has sent out our email ballots to all members to formally elect the 2021 board members. If you're a member and you have not yet responded, please do so as soon as possible. And if you're a member and you haven't received your e-ballot, then let Brenda know right away at 706-660-1442. We're still collecting coats and jackets for Paz Amigos. The Stewart Center detainees are released wearing the clothing that they wore when they went in, which is usually summer weight clothing. So if you or someone you know can contribute a warm article of clothing, please let Judy Barnett know. Now she can arrange a COVID-safe pickup at your house. Just leave a message for her at 706-660-1442. We're collecting items to donate to the Homeless Resource Network. Susan Stevenson, our social action coordinator, will deliver the items for us. She's placed 2 large boxes on the front porch at UU. You can drop off your items anytime that's convenient for you. The articles that are needed most are blankets, small tarps, socks, t-shirts, and underwear. We're still collecting money every third Sunday we'll be doing so for several months, to give to Feeding the Valley Food Bank. Third Sunday is our Giveaway the Plate Day, but you don't have to wait till third Sunday. You can make a donation at any time. Just make your donation on our donation GATP, Giveaway the Plate, and our treasurer will be sure to deposit it into the correct amount. And you can mail a check to Post Office Box 698, Fortson, Georgia 31808, or you can use PayPal. And now for lighting our chalice. The chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It speaks to us of reason, tolerance, and freedom, and also of compassion, respect, and love. May its flame ever warm and illuminate our lives. There we go, and I'll set this right up here. And now let us once again affirm the 7 principles which sum up the core values that Unitarian Universalist congregations support and promote. Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Number 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Number 3, the acceptance of one another and the encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Number 4, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Number 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our congregations and in society at large. Number 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And number 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Now, one of the ways we proclaim the vitality of our fellowship is through sharing brief and personal joys and concerns. If you have a joy or concern, you can send that in by chat, and we'll take a moment here. Let me see, I have one that's come in. Okay, Elise has given us the address that I just mentioned for mailing in donations.
I've got a joy.
Okay.
My wife and I just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary yesterday.
All right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. If you have any joys or concerns that you would like to be shared ahead of time, you don't have to wait to the day that we have our service. You can just email those to our president, Hal Majette, or to our office administrator, Brenda Stevens, at uufcga@gmail.com. And now for our celebration of life toast. If you have something to drink, you can use that or just toast with us in spirit. We celebrate life. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievements of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustrations of misfortune and heartache. Not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance, sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all. Knowing of the certainty of death and remembering the value of each moment, we drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky and with life. Together, we drink this toast in celebration of life. And now for our offering. If you would like to contribute, you can mail your contribution to UU Fellowship of Columbus, Box 698, Fortson, Georgia, 31808. We have a PayPal account set up as well. And if you check your chat box, the chat box at the bottom, you'll find that the address, written address, has been included. And now Whittaker will play Partita, Fourth Movement by Jan Koetsier. And now a reading from one of our members, Danielle Neale.
Thank you for joining me on a little trail off of Sandfort Road in Phoenix City, Alabama. Before my reading, I have a sad announcement to make, and it is with a heavy heart that I have to say Jason and I are moving to Pennsylvania at the beginning of December. I cannot find the words to express my gratitude towards the fellowship and its members and what you've done for our family and what you've done for the scouting program. I cannot possibly thank you enough. So, for my reading today, I would like to read the lyrics from a song from the Wicked Broadway musical. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes a sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I've been changed for good. It well may be that we never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now, whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. Thank you again, and thank you for everything you've done. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
And Danielle, I hope you understand how much you and your family have added to us and how much you have left your footprints and your fingerprints in our fellowship. And we hope that you take a piece of us with you when you go. I hope you find a fellowship. There's plenty of fellowships in Pennsylvania, and I know they would be lucky to have you. You know, before I start today's program, I had originally said that I would talk about how Buddhism and science can teach us about the universe. Unfortunately, with all the media attention that this COVID-19 virus has been getting, a few other viruses seem to have been acting up and out of jealousy. The one thing I have almost no immunity to is a stomach virus. First, my daughter Kayla and son-in-law Josh got a stomach virus. So then we came in to take care of little Max, our grandson, to help them get over it. And sure enough, I caught it. Then my oldest daughter, Leah, caught the stomach virus. And so we went over to, well, my wife went over. I was sick at that time. My wife went over to help with our grandson, Max, while Leah got over it. And then Karen got it. So with all of that, I ended up with no time to actually sit down and write anything. So please forgive me. I'm using an older one, older program that I had done before. One about how we all find our niche in the community, our way to contribute. And I called it the Clan of the Dead Sloth. Our story today begins in prehistoric times, long before we had the ability to ignore the lessons of history. Back in the days of strong, intimidating Neanderthal tribes, such as the clan of the cave bear, the clan of the white wolf, the Bloody Crow clan, and the fearful tribe featured in our story today, the clan of the Dead Sloth. So named because the other clans were so horrendous that all the good caves were taken and they were forced to make their camp in the hollowed out carcass of a giant sloth. Most of the tribe's members were skillful hunters who used their skills to contribute to the tribe's livelihood. But there were 7 members who, well, they never quite found their niche. They were named Ugg, Nug, Buggle, and Tug, Missile, and Gristle, and Tim. The tribe's shaman, Toe Fungus, was a wise old man of 35. He decided to send these 7 on a quest of self-discovery, a journey across the wilderness to recruit new members from a dying tribe that lived many days from here. Toe Fungus gave them pictures of the land that had been painted on a piece of cured deerskin, and he told them that if they followed the pictures, it would lead them to a land of discovery. So off they set on their journey. Ugg, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. Ugg was looking at the deerskin when a sudden gust of wind caught the map and it flew into the air, dancing gleefully on the morning breeze. They felt strangely playful, happy to be away from the usual gut-wrenching smell of the sloth carcass. Even the old woman, Buggle, the oldest of the troop, felt oddly youthful. Now, Buggle was believed to be somewhere between the ages of 45 to maybe 100, but since the scholars of that time had not yet cracked the riddles of arithmetic, her true age was anyone's guess. In fact, the clan only knew of three numbers: none, one, and more than one. They spent most of the first day playfully chasing the flying deerskin. Once they caught it, they would throw it up in the air and let the wind carry it off and resume their joyful pursuit, happy to be doing something useful for the tribe. But at one point, it finally occurred to Ugg that this might not have been what Tofungus meant when he said, "Follow the pictures." He took a closer look and he realized that the pictures looked like the mountains and river beside them. And if he turned the deerskin so that the river in the picture was on the same side as the real river, the picture showed a path between the two hilltops ahead. So Ugg had discovered his talent. He could match pictures on a piece of skin to real features of the land, which was very useful because up until now, only Buggle had enough self-confidence to stop and ask anyone for directions. So the next day, they resumed their journey. Ugg, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. And they were walking along. It began to rain. They huddled together to keep warm. They missed the warmth of their rotting sloth carcass. Tug noticed a pile of mammoth bones nearby, and it occurred to him that if he tied the tops together and stood them on top, he could cover them with tree branches and they wouldn't get nearly as wet. It was just as warm and actually drier than their oozing sloth carcass. And with the fresh pine needles from the branches, it actually smelled quite nice. So Tug had discovered his gift. He could imagine a better way to put things together. When it stopped raining, they continued on their journey. Ugg, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. At the end of the day, Tug taught them to assemble a shelter just as they had when it was raining. They built a fire and sat around just staring at the flames as they had done so many nights before. That got a little boring, so they tried staring at each other. After a while, even that was boring. But then Nug was struck with a brilliant idea. He pulled a small bird bone from his beard that he'd been saving for later, and he drilled tiny holes in it. Then he blew through one end and discovered that he could make sharp whistling sounds like a bird. So Nug discovered his gift. He found that he had the gift of music, and he kept the small troop entertained for hours until one by one they fell fast asleep. In the morning, they were off once more on their journey. Ugg, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. By this time, they were all feeling a little hungry, not having eaten anything other than a bag of roots and 2 field mice that they had left home with. They had counted the mice before they left, and since they had counted 1 and more than 1, and the number of their troop was also more than 1, they assumed they had enough. But apparently that wasn't enough for everyone, and they all agreed that someday somebody really needed to get a handle on this whole arithmetic thing. Now they're all hungry, and Buggle had taken to napping all the time, and heaven help anyone who had to wake her up. They happened across a village of newcomers, Homo sapien men and women, and they were nearly hairless, or taller, slimmer, and their eyebrows were almost flat. They were hideous, and they always acted like they owned the place. But they were roasting a wild boar on an open pit, and the smell was delicious. Perhaps they would be willing to share. But who would be willing to approach them, and were they friendly? It was little Tim who stepped up to the task. Now, among the clan of the Clave Bear, among the clan of the Dead Sloth, Tim was considered kind of an oddball. He spent all of his time collecting rocks. He carried them around in little bags made of goat scrotums. He had rocks of all shapes and colors, smooth stones, sharp, jagged stones, Some were black, some green, some white, but his favorite was a big bag of black volcanic glass. Now, we would call it obsidian. Tim called it pretty black shiny rock that will cut you if you touch it wrong. Tim walked bravely into the stranger's camp, holding a bag of obsidian high above his head and pointing to the roasted boar. The newcomers considered the trade, and then they showed Tim their own bags of obsidian. Tim counted one, more than one, more than one, and one. So clearly, they didn't need any more obsidian. The strangers disregarded Tim's offer and turned their backs on him while commenting to each other how he smelled of rotten sloth. This was how most trades between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens usually went in those days. But then Tim did something totally unexpected. He made another offer, something unheard of in the Neanderthal trade game. He held up a single piece of red obsidian. Homo sapiens had never seen red obsidian before. Everyone in the tribe wanted it, and the fact that he only had one made it all the more desirable. The sapiens began to argue amongst themselves, and it created such a ruckus that their shaman offered Tim the entire roasted boar just to be rid of him. So Tim had discovered his gift that day. He was pretty good at trading. The troop feasted on wild boar, and everyone was thankful to Tim, but they also felt sorry that he had to part with such a rare and beautiful red glass. They knew that the red one was his favorite, and then Tim shared a little secret with them. He opened up a whole bag of red obsidian. He took out one small piece of the red volcanic glass and dropped it in with a bag full of the black ones. He told them that he had learned that if you have something pretty and you treat it like it's really rare, people will want it more and you can get more when you trade it. Now, incidentally, hundreds of thousands of years later, a descendant of Tim's would convince people that diamonds are rare and expensive, and with the help of some very talented advertisers, would launch an entire industry based on nothing more than high-pressured carbon. Now, once they finished eating, they played rock, rock, rock to see who would have to wake up Buggle, and they could continue their journey. Now, the loser this time was Missile. Missile gently shook Buggle to wake her up and got hit in the head with her walking staff as a thank you. Buggle said, "I'm so tired of y'all poking and shaking on me. For the last time, I wasn't sleeping. I was just resting my eyes. Next time one of you touches me, I'm going to grab you by the throat, pull up your ankles, and turn you inside out." So they continued on their journey. Ugh, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. It wasn't long before they began to regret eating an entire roast boar the day before. There was something about that pig that just didn't agree with them. The only one that wasn't sick was Gristle. Now back home, Gristle spent most of his time eating roots and leaves and fungus. Sometimes he ate things that he really shouldn't have. Like the time he ate the red mushrooms and ran around thinking he was a rooster. For 3 days, he kept waking everybody up with his constant crowing. But this time, his experimenting was actually helpful. He had been chewing on mint leaves, and when he gave some to the others, it seemed to help with their stomach aches. And so Gristle discovered his talent. He had built up a knowledge over the years of plants and roots and mushrooms and how eating them made him feel. And he was especially fun at parties. Now that they were feeling better, they walked up to a small grassy hill and took a nap. An hour later, they woke suddenly to the sight of a pack of wolves that had surrounded the hill and was slowly advancing towards them. They were terrified. They were panicked. They were losing their minds. Everyone was frightened with nowhere to run, no weapons to fight, and no conceivable way to get out of this. Everyone was losing their mind except for Buggle, who was still asleep, and Missile, who felt a sudden and surprising calm wash over her. Missile had discovered her gift. She had the ability to remain calm in an emergency. And with quick thinking, she turned Buggle so that she faced the wolf pack's alpha leader, and then she kicked Buggle in the shin. Buggle's eyes shot open. She saw the wolves approaching. She took a deep breath, raised her staff high over her head, and gave out a war cry, the likes of which the world had never heard before. She said, "Buckle up, buttercups, you just flipped my witch switch." She twirled her staff like the blades of a helicopter and descended down upon the wolves in a whirling, swirling vortex of death and dentures. There was hair and teeth flying everywhere, and when the ruckus finally settled, there wasn't a wolf in sight. Buggle had discovered her gift, and it was the most surprising of all. Old Buggle was a mighty warrior. She slept all the time, not because she was old, but because she was bored. She'd seen it all, done it all, and now she needed that burst of adrenaline that comes from battle to make things interesting. And so they continued on the last leg of their journey. Ugg, Nug, Buggle and Tug, Missile and Gristle, and Tim. Ugg looked at the pictures and led them through the woods. According to the map, the dying village with the new recruits should be just over the next hill. Gristle was the first to reach the top, and what he saw turned his stomach. He stuffed his mouth with mint leaves and climbed back down to tell the others what he had seen. The village is over the next hill. The people there are in such sorry shape that they're living in the hollowed out carcass of a smelly dead sloth. Now, Ugg looked at the map and wondered why he hadn't noticed before that the trail was in the same shape as the moon. They climbed over the hill and found Toe Fungus, the shaman, greeting them with open arms and explaining that they were the new recruits he had sent them out looking for. He asked them what they had learned and explained how each new skill could be used to help secure the community. But Ugg wasn't very happy with the fact that they had been hiking for days in a circle and almost eaten by wolves. He nodded to Missile, and Missile turned Buggle towards his shaman and kicked her in the shin. Now, when we join a community, we bring our whole selves. We bring our joys and our concerns. We bring our gifts, both known and unknown. The funny thing about gifts is that you never really know what they are until they're opened, until they're needed. There are many ways in which we give to our community, and many ways in which our gifts affect the community at large. Money is one way we give. It's the most flexible way, but there are other more specific ways that we give. We can offer to help tutor a struggling student in one of our local schools. We can help with one of our yard sales, sing in the choir, coach a local youth team, volunteer at a soup kitchen, or volunteer at a hospital. Just be a good neighbor. You'll become an asset to the community, as well as discover gifts that you may not know that you had. Thank you for listening. And now we extinguish the chalice and remember to stay on after our closing words for conversation. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts as we leave this place. And now for our closing words. After our closing words, Whittaker will close us out with hymn 339, Knowledge They Say, from Singing the Living Tradition. And remember, stay on after the service for virtual coffee and conversation. Now, with unity of spirit, we go our ways in universal fellowship until we meet again. So long.